Hello everyone, the story we're going to tell today is A Light for Those Who Follow. It was the middle of the night. He opened his eyes, instinctively gripping his blanket. He hesitated at first, but finally gathered whatever he could find from his mind to peek outside. The shadows in the forest flickered under the moonlight. It felt as if someone was calling from the past. He took a deep breath. He always knew it was just a thought. He knew, but he just couldn't quiet his mind. He could hear the trees rustling in the wind, but to be honest, it was too dark for him to really see anything. He yawned again, but he dared not close his eyes, though every part of his body told him to. Lucian, that was his name. No one had ever told him that the torch he would need in life to light the dark and dispel fear was already imprinted in his name. His parents were long gone, leaving nothing in his memory. For as long as he could remember, it had always been just him and his little sister, Zolar. They lived in a small shack-like house. It was old and shabby, but it was home. And that alone was solid proof that he was more than he thought himself to be. However, in Lucian's eyes, the world was full of different kinds of hearts. Some were paranoid over nothing, while others were meticulous about everything. Some were diligent without even trying, while others were lazy despite their best intentions. And as for him, he was easily scared. The rustling in the night could keep him awake for hours. The loud cries of vendors in the marketplace froze him in place. Even the barking of village dogs sent his heart racing. All the time, he found himself breaking out in a cold sweat. The villagers would tease him, saying, "How will you ever survive in this world, child? You must learn to be brave." But Lucian didn't understand what it meant to be brave. All he knew was that, compared to everyone else, his fear ran deeper, like an invisible weight tied to his ribs. And every time he thought about this, it wrapped around his chest, worrying him deeply, because of his sister, Zolar. She was the smallest child in the village, not the youngest, but certainly the weakest. At 5 years old, she looked barely 3. Lucian knew deep in his heart that the world was a far more dangerous place for Zolar than it was for him, and yet he doubted he could even protect himself, let alone her. He prayed every night, hoping that nothing bad would happen to them. One night, a mysterious black mist appeared from nowhere, silent, unnoticed at first, until it swallowed the first house at the forest edge, until the first villager disappeared. When the village finally realized, panic spread. Shouts of warning mixed with the crackling of fire. Some tried to fight back, setting their houses on fire like a desperate cry. But the darkness mercilessly replaced them with still emptiness. The black mist kept removing everything in its path. It was like a wind from nothing. Lucian woke to the sound of chaos. He rushed to the window. People were running. Their cries filled the night, and beyond them, the black mist was removing everything. His mind screamed, "Run! Run!" But his legs would not move. They remained rooted to the ground. paralyzed by fear. Then a soft voice came from behind. "Lucian." It was Solar. Her voice pulled him out of his frozen fear. He turned around. Solar sat on the floor. A fallen cabinet had trapped her leg, but she did not cry. She said again, "Lucian." Something in Lucian just snapped. He rushed to her, lifted her into his arms, and ran. He ran past the burning houses, past the fleeing villagers, past the suffocating weight of his own fear. The mist followed, creeping closer. His heart pounded against his ribs. His lungs burned with every breath. But he did not stop. He could not stop. He could almost feel the mist chasing them, silent, unseen, but close. The only sound left was his own footsteps. He didn't know how long he ran. Minutes, hours. The world around him had melted into darkness. By the time he collapsed in front of an abandoned shrine at the edge of the forest, his legs no longer belonged to him. He gasped for air, his body trembling. But when he looked back, the mist was gone. Seemingly, they had made it to the other side of the forest. "Lucian, are you okay?" Solar said. Lucian nodded. "Yes, I'm okay. Don't be afraid, Solar. I think we're safe now." "I'm not afraid," she said. Lucian was surprised and asked, "You're not afraid? Not at all?" She shook her head. "At first I was, but then I saw you, and I wasn't afraid anymore." Lucian stared at her and let out a quiet laugh. "You weren't afraid because of me?" She seriously corrected his brother. "No, I'm not afraid, because you are here." "Me too," he murmured, gently resting his hand on her head. Fear was still there, but something else was there too. Then they leaned against the old shrine and closed their eyes. The shrine's long candle seemed to flicker with a subtle glow, like the steady breath of the long night. No one knew what truly happened to Lucian and Solar. Some said they escaped the mist but never returned home. Others said that they were erased by the darkness too. But long after the village was rebuilt, travelers who passed through the woods began to talk about something. A shrine at the forest edge, long abandoned. A stone tablet, worn by time, stood among wildflowers. Every night, fireflies that knew the secret of light would gather, along with flowers. They glowed in the dark, like guardians protecting the earth they sprang from. As the tale spread, more and more people journeyed to the shrine. They believed that perhaps it was the flickering flames here that had once held back the black mist. They knelt before it, lighting candles in the night, for those who once ran through the night, for those who never found their way home, for those who left their fear behind, and in its place left a light. And so, as the years passed, a quiet tradition remained. Whenever travelers crossed the forest at night, they would always stop at the shrine, and before they left, they would light a candle, not for themselves, but for those who follow.